Yesterday marked the anniversary of the Marmara earthquake on the 17th of August 1999 at 3:02, a magnitude 7.4 rupture on the North Anatolian fault tore through Gulchuk and Kocaeli, killed many thousands, injured tens of thousands more in Turkey, and exposed a national truth that's still uncomfortable. Quakes do not kill on their own, bad buildings kill. 3 months later, on the 12th of November, a second major shock struck Dusha, and just 3 weeks after Izmit, on the 7th of September 1999, Athens suffered a deadly 6 Richter scale event, a grim reminder that the Aegean and the Anatolian systems share both hazard and humanity. I was in Athens at that time, and I remember that quake and the aftershocks, and it was genuinely frightening. Ankara created a compulsory earthquake insurance pool, DASK, in 2000, and later unified disaster response in AFAD in 2009. These were real upgrades to risk sharing and coordination. Building Inspection Law number 4708 arrived in 2001 to professionalise oversight. The Earthquake Code was comprehensively rewritten in 2007, and again in 2018, a law which came into legal force on the 1st of January 2019. On paper, Turkey's seismic provisions are now comparable to leading international standards. The problem is that there may be words in the Gazette, but the compliance on the street is quite different. Law 6306 of 2012 empowered authorities to declare risky structures and zones for redevelopment and use carefully. It's a powerful tool to replace lethal stock. Used crudely, it invites displacement, corner cutting, and rent seeking. There's a public awareness program, drills, school programs, and seismic mapping have expanded, yet many people in Istanbul still do not know their local assembly point, in part because so many designated areas have later been built over. The whole thing is a sort of uncomfortable record. After the earthquake on the 6th of February 2023, prosecutors chased contractors, and a familiar indictment returned: shoddy construction, weak concrete, illegal alterations, the use of periodic construction amnesties that launder non-compliant buildings. This was not a mystery of geology, but a failure of enforcement and politics. And Istanbul once mapped hundreds of post-disaster gathering areas. Many have since become malls or towers. You cannot pitch tents in a shopping centre. In Hatay and elsewhere, new powers created reserve housing zones and transferred deeds to the Treasury to speed reconstruction. Survivors learned by text message that their plots would be repurposed. Speed is essential, but consent, clarity, and quality control are really not optional extras. The Turkish government has promised hundreds of thousands of new homes after the 2023 earthquakes in the south of Turkey, and has showcased deliveries. The opposition has pushed back on two fronts. First, against mass standardised schemes they argue reproduce yesterday's errors under today's logos. Second, in court, where local suits have paused some projects over process and siting. The right question is not whether to rebuild fast, of course we must, but whether the rebuilt city will actually meet the TBEC performance targets in reality, not just in tender documents. Istanbul stands and adds a sharper edge. Municipal policy has been politicised, assembly sites were lost in the 2000s, and the centre versus city fight has often favoured ribbon cutting over risk reduction. The result is a trust deficit that no glossy rendering can really fill. There have been recent tremors in Istanbul on the 23rd of April 2025. I was there. A magnitude 6.2 earthquake near Silivri injured more than 150 people as they jumped in panic. One abandoned building collapsed. The city's nerves are justified. Another earthquake on the 10th of August 2025, a shallow earthquake, 6.1%, 6.1 on the Richter scale, killed an elderly resident, injured at least 29, and 16 buildings were collapsed, most of them derelict. Authorities even detained a constructor. This is what routine hazard looks like in a country built across fault lines. But a lot of the safety elements were in place by August, and both in August and in April, sizable earthquake measurements and significantly few fatalities. Google has now acknowledged that its Android earthquake alerts badly underestimated the first 2023 main shock, sending only 469 high-level warnings where millions should have received a wake-up alarm. The company says the algorithm has been improved and performed better during April's Istanbul quake. The lesson is simple: do not outsource public safety to a private app. National systems must lead, phones can add redundancy. And what needs to happen now is a series of probably eight key points need to be addressed. First of all, there need to be the amnesties need to stop. There need to be no more legal forgiveness for illegal or non-compliant work. There needs to be a register of all past buildings that have received amnesties and require mandatory reassessment up to 2018. There needs to be better inspection in hospital, schools, water, power hubs, bridges and viaducts. They all need careful audits, not paper reviews. There needs to be serious work done, and the results need to be published by address by address, so that people can see what is safe. Turkey needs to retrofit at scale, not just rebuild. Law 6306 enables targeted reinforcement. It needs to be used to upgrade standing blocks where foundations and geometry merited, with low interest finance tied to verified performance outcomes. The loss of emergency gathering areas needs to be amended and reversed, so assembly locations can be rearranged. The government needs to acquire and reserve open plots within walking distance of each area, signposted, and drills need to be established, and the areas, these open areas, need to be protected in law. Independent materials, random steel, core sampling of concrete, all these things need to be established for quality and then wheeled out for speed. And there needs to be live publication of site test results to build confidence and to deter shortcuts. Payments need to be linked to those sites that have passed the tests, rather than those sites that have already poured their slabs. AFAD needs to be made more independent in peacetime. The operations must be kept under the Interior Ministry for crisis response, but a ring-fenced technical arm to manage the code, to map, to plan for disasters. All of this needs to be audited and arranged on an annual basis. Sirens, broadcast interruptions, mobile phone broadcasts with AFAD control. All of this, again, needs to be established, controlled, tested, and it needs probably to be tested quarterly, and the pass rate needs to be published. There needs to be a simple rule for every household, particularly in Istanbul, which is such a built-up area. Know your building's year, know the code basis, the last inspection date, the dusk status, and the assembly point. A QR code in every lobby can provide that information in 10 seconds. The Athens quake of September the 7th in 1999, 3 weeks after Izmit, produced an unprecedented and unexpected thaw in relations between Turkey and Greece as rescue teams crossed borders in both directions. It was a civics lesson in empathy and good sense. Memory should push us towards compliance, towards compliance and competence, not nostalgia. And anniversaries invite speeches, faults invite action. The choice before Istanbul and every Turkish city is stark. We can pour vast sums into rapid estates that look new and fail quietly, or we can invest in verifiable performance, transparent oversight, and social consent. The earth will test the work. It always has. It's simply important to be ready. So, as I say, yesterday represented the anniversary of the Izmit quake on the 17th of August. And very shortly afterwards, on the 7th of September, there was a quake of similar magnitude in Athens. There were 143 fatalities in Athens. There were a significant number more in the Izmit quake and in Istanbul itself. And sadly, this is a disaster waiting to be repeated, and with even greater severity. It's something that the authorities in both Greece and Turkey need to be mindful of and need to prepare for.